This is Salesforce Simplified, the podcast from Victoriam Solutions. Here's your host, Mike Boyle.
So who's ready for summer? Well, as we record this podcast in the middle of May 2021, summer 21 will be here before we know it, and so will Salesforce's Summer 21 release. Today we're talking with AdVic CPQ practice lead Aaron Chambly about some of his favorite new features in the Salesforce Summer release. Hi, Aaron. It is always great to have you back here on the Salesforce Simplified podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hope you are as well.
Wonderful to have you with us. So this is your second of 3 annual assignments for the podcast. We had you in January for the spring release, and we'll have you back again a little later this year in the fall when we'll talk about Winter 22, right? So today we have you here talking about Salesforce Summer 21 and some of the areas that we're going to cover today. Some of the features that you want to highlight for us for this release are found in Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Field Service, and some other new features we'll talk about as well. So as we always do, let's start with Sales Cloud. And for this particular go around, you've decided there's one that you want to call out for Summer 21. What is that one?
Yeah, so the release is to drive sales team accountability with pipeline inspection. It was a bit of a quieter release for sales this time around. So when we get to our next section on service, I think that'll really have everyone excited. But the pipeline inspection update, I think, is really great. So if we think back to last release, like you were mentioning, they added some new features where you could get updates on opportunities at a glance from the list view without doing any additional work. And with this update, they're building on that to give you some plug and play reporting with a new app that will be available where you'll be able to go in and see at a glance different breakdowns of your opportunity pipeline as well as changes that have occurred without having to dig deeper and actually go into the record unless you want to do so. So I think more plug and play reporting is always great. And so if you're a new Salesforce customer, being able to just open that up and take a look at your pipeline without having to build out any additional reports or dashboards, I think that's a huge win and why I wanted to call that one out.
I think there'll be a lot of smiling faces out there about that one. Moving on to Service Cloud, we have 3 inside that we want to talk about for the Summer 21 release. The first one is use historical data to predict your workload with intelligent forecasting. What's behind that one?
Yeah, so besides being quite a mouthful to get out there, this is an exciting update for Service Cloud in general. What they're doing with this release is they're releasing what they're calling that intelligent forecasting, which will be some machine learning algorithms that are going to use kind of the intuitive report builder that you've already seen out of Salesforce to leverage all of the great service history and data you have in your org to slice up and analyze what your workload might look like by time of day, region, skills if you're using that, as well as leverage your custom data. So it's pretty exciting that they're continuing to build on Service Cloud to where now it's not just working with your customer as it comes in, but providing you some more tools to be really proactive and do some planning.
Well, all of these updates that we're calling out here in Service Cloud all seem to have a mouthful of a title. So the second one we want to talk about is generate scheduling requirements and ensure shift coverage with Omnichannel Planning.
Yeah, definitely a mouthful. Omnichannel Planning is really, it builds upon the last piece we just talked about, in that with Omnichannel, you can take your incoming cases and route them to your support agents using different skills or rules that you set up. And with this update, you'll be able to specifically do some more of that proactive staffing where you'll be able to analyze your schedules for your service manager. As a service manager, I should say, you'd be able to analyze your scheduled shifts you have for your agents and even forecast your incoming workload based on the data you have in your Salesforce org. So just really exciting tools as a service manager to be able to be more proactive and take it to that next level with Service Cloud.
Just one little caveat here for the third one inside Service Cloud for the Salesforce Summer 21 release. This has beta slapped on it. It's connect your customers to the right service agents using Omnichannel Flow. That sounds interesting.
Yeah. So normally I try not to pick a beta feature just because there's no telling when it'll become generally available or if it will ever become generally available. However, this one just really caught my eye, and it's another one of those where if you're either managing an org or you're just the admin, this is something you'll be able to use where you'll get all of the power behind the flow builder and be able to start using that with Omnichannel. So before, Omnichannel could just be used to route your cases, but being able to reference the power of Omnichannel within a special type of flow means that you could go out and do maybe updates to other records while you're routing your incoming cases, or just build out some really nuanced and specific rules based on your business rules or your use case. So I think this is going to be really exciting, especially if and when it becomes generally available. So I wanted to call that out, even though it is in beta, just because it's going to be really powerful and another way to extend the platform.
And we should just remind everyone that these are just three of the highlights that you're calling out for Service Cloud for Summer 21 release. And there are more. And in this show's episode notes, I will put a link to all of the release notes for this particular release. So don't worry about missing anything. I promise you, it'll all be there, and some other resources as well. Want to move into field service now, Aaron, and the one that you wanted to talk about specifically has a very short title. It's called Briefcase Builder. What's inside that?
Yeah, so this has been a feature that was beta previewed for a while now, but it's really exciting for anyone that has the field service package, because with this, you'll be able to actually select specific records or criteria that you want to have available for offline use. And I know Salesforce and offline aren't two terms you typically hear together, but it's one of the probably most unique features to the field service package is that you can preload some data in there using the briefcase builder, where you'll build out specific criteria for what you want to have available offline. And what that means is, let's say you have a field tech that's going out somewhere where maybe reception's pretty spotty, or they're working in an area where they know they won't have a signal. They'll still be able to complete their work while they're out there and even access some of that Salesforce data that you build into their briefcase. So I think the fact that this is finally generally available is really exciting, and it's going to help in a lot of field service applications, just because you're not always going to have a signal where someone's going out to do work. And so being able to still leverage the Salesforce platform and all of its data is a huge win.
The last one that we wanted to check in on today is under the development umbrella. Developers are going to want to pay attention to this one. And it's called Create Quick Actions with Lightning Web Components. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, so this is the last one I wanted to pick out. There were a lot of, just like with Service Cloud, there were a lot of updates for development heavy items available. So following this episode, I would highly recommend everyone goes and takes a look at the full release notes. But with this one, I know for a fact that Lightning Web Components are very popular because they're very powerful, and they are a great way to extend the platform if you can't quite get to what you want declaratively. And being able to launch your Lightning Web Component from a quick action means that rather than having to build out a page to host it, you can now have it isolated up in the top right of any record and be able to click it, open it up in a frame without leaving your record, and then interact with anything you've had created with that custom development. So it's just a nice way to stay more centralized to your record and the work you're doing without having to leave to go access some of the cool work your developers put together for you.
Developers are out there giving that a big old round of applause.
Oh, definitely.
Well, Aaron, as always, thanks. I really, really appreciate you digging through the latest Salesforce release notes. I know that's it's kind of a yeoman's job, but there's a lot to digest. But Thank you for doing it for us. And I'll be looking forward to you coming back for the Winter 21 release. Actually, the Winter 22 release. Let me get that straight. And that'll be a little bit later this year, as I mentioned earlier, sometime this fall. Aaron, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
And for our audience, if you would like to learn a little bit more about Salesforce's Summer 21 release, as I also mentioned earlier, I'll be placing links in this show's episode notes for you, along with some other really helpful resources. Hey, is this the first time you're listening to our podcast? If it is, first, thank you. We want to make sure that you follow us on your favorite podcast channel to get all the past and future episodes. And we'd appreciate you telling your friends and colleagues too. I'm Mike Boyle from AdVic. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Salesforce Simplified podcast. Our next episode is just around the corner.
You've been listening to Salesforce Simplified, the podcast from Victoriam Solutions.